JD on the Republican line. Your first phone call here for Craig Shirley. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Morning, JD.
Well, here's what I have to say. I think the Republicans are cowards. They will not fight. Okay? Why won't they fight what obviously is going on in this country? When you have a man who's going to prosecute Navy SEALs, meaning Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, which I even hate saying that, he's going to prosecute 3 Navy SEALs because of supposedly or allegedly a terrorist was captured and he happened to get beaten up, during the course of his capture. The Republican Party and the representatives of the Republican Party and the so-called conservatives are merely cowards. They will not fight. They will not stand up against the left. I'll give the left this much credit. Here's what I will give the left credit for. At least they will fight for what they believe in.
All right, we'll leave it there. Mr. Shirley?
I understand the caller's frustration. I sometimes feel it myself, that it doesn't seem that they are speaking with one clear voice right now. But the problem is that it's a food fight right now inside the conservative, party and the Republican Party and the conservative movement. It's like the Omegas versus the Deltas, and who's going to have primacy over the campus. So right now they're too busy fighting with each other to really effectively take on President Obama and the Democrats. But they will eventually get it together. They always do. Nature abhors a vacuum. And that vacuum will at some point be filled by a populist voice. I don't know who's going to be the one individual who's going to speak for it. And maybe it's not going to be one individual who's going to speak for it. It's going to speak with many voices. But at some point they will get their act together and start to not only make their case, but make the case effectively against the Democrats.
Jackson, Wyoming. Butch on the Democrats line. Morning.
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving. Allow me to just bring across some hypocrisy on the conservative movement and give me some time to do so. Conservatives say they're for states' rights. But when Oregon went for death with dignity, and they voted, the citizens of the state voted twice for that, the conservative government wanted to go after the doctors. When states want medical marijuana laws approved, the conservatives want to go after the doctors or the distributors of the medical marijuana. Then you had Terry Schiavo situation. You people call yourself pro-life, yet you're for the death penalty, and yet you're for wars. The situation is that you just, when a baby is born, you want the mother to bring a baby boy. She wants to stay home and take care of it. You want her to go to work, or she's a welfare mother.
Craig Shirley?
I think the caller has some very fair points about what does the Republican Party stand for, and that it should be ideologically consistent. I agree. I think it should be ideologically consistent. I'm speaking now for myself and not as a Reagan historian, but I think it's intellectually dishonest for the Republican Party to say to the American people, overturn Roe v. Wade and send it back to the states for adjudication, but on the other hand, we want to federalize marriage with the marriage amendment. I think that virtually all these issues, behavioral issues in the tradition of what the founders envisioned and what Reagan articulated, is that most of these behavioral issues, if not all, marriage, divorce, adoption, child rearing, should be decided by the states and not by the federal government. The problem with the last 8 years is that the toothpaste got out of the tube with the social right, with Terry Schiavo, with the federal marriage amendment, with faith-based initiatives and other things that were offered to the social right to nationalize these issues instead of leaving them where they belong at the local issue. So this is a battle to decide once and for all, what does the social right stand for? Does it believe in the traditional fusionism of conservatism, which was that government was a threat to both the economic interests and a threat to the social interest, and so therefore these battles should be fought at the local level, or are we going to nationalize these issues?
Next phone call, Syracuse, New York. Ralph, good morning.
Well, good morning. I'm a UAW member, right from Syracuse, New York. And at the beginning of the segment, it said that Craig Shirley was against card check, and the problem is that there's been a lot of talk about reading bills, and I doubt that Mr. Shirley has ever read the National Labor Relations Act, because the Employee Free Choice Act never eliminated the secret ballot. Section 9 governs secret ballot elections. It never deleted any language. All it did was add a new paragraph that workers could form a reunion and petition the National Labor Relations Board to be certified through a card check.
All right, Ralph, let's get a response. Craig Shirley?
Well, first of all, Ralph, I'm a former Syracusan myself. I'm from the Valley, so first of all, go Orange. Secondly, is that I don't think the intro said anything about the card check, but if you want to ask me, I am against it because I believe in a secret ballot is sacred in this country, whether it's in political campaigns or whether it's in union elections, and that's something that must be preserved and protected.
Here's a tweet from one of our viewers. Where is Newt Gingrich in your view of Republican Party leaders?
I think that Gingrich is one of the most important thinkers and leaders in the Republican Party today, in the conservative movement. I think that he gets it. He understands what the fight is about. Is that there are others, obviously, who are doing a good job making the case. As I mentioned, Pawlenty and Pence and other people. And so Gingrich is somebody who really the movement and the Republican Party need a lot right now.
Next phone call, San Diego, on the Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Shirley, I guess my first comment I wanted to ask, and this is my opinion, when Mrs. Palin was selected for the position of vice president, right, and I'm a stout Republican, I felt like the Republican Party had finally just gave up and looked for the that one bang to maybe to make a difference on the party. But my question to you is this: on your title, Rendezvous with Destiny. I mean, the title itself, I was wondering if you could explain to me how that came about and what were you trying to aim for? And basically, that was my question. I'll take my answer off air.
That is a great question. In 1936, there was a young radio broadcaster at WHO Radio in Des Moines, Iowa, listening to Franklin Roosevelt's accept the renomination of the Democratic Party. And as you might remember, FDR famously said, to some generations, much is given, of other generations, much is expected. This generation has a rendezvous with destiny. And the young radio broadcaster heard the idiom and became very infused with him. And of course, the broadcaster was Dutch Reagan. But the history, the forensic of Rendezvous with Destiny goes back even further than that. There was a poem written in 1918 by an American who had volunteered to join the French Foreign Legion in World War I by the name of Alan Seeger. He wrote a poem called I Have a Rendezvous with Death, which it was a romantic poem, and unfortunately it was true because he was killed on July 4th, 1918, the Battle of the Somme. But his poem was published posthumously. President Kennedy so loved the poem that his wife Jacqueline memorized it and used to repeat it to him often. One of the brain trust around FDR was a fellow by the name of Tommy Corcoran, and he was familiar with the poem and took Rendezvous with Death and turned it into Rendezvous with Destiny for FDR's speech at the 1936 Democratic Convention. Reagan heard it, and he always used it in all of his important speeches. His speech for Goldwater in '64, he used it. He used it in several important speeches to the conservative movement in the '70s. He used it when he announced he was going to run for president in November of 1979. And then he used it again in July of 1980 when he accepted the Republican nomination for president.